welcome to LADYADA.
Hey everybody, it's a Sunday night and that means it's time for a desk of LADYADA because it's LADYADA o'clock or so. I'm sometimes late, but it's a lovely evening and I thought we'd check in on the kind of electronics I've been working on over the weekend. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Alright, so this weekend I spent way too long on refactoring our e-ink drivers to support partial updates and some Grayscale support as well. I got a sample display that's actually a pretty popular model of display, and it has partial update support. So I thought I'd show that off. So let's go to the overhead and check it out.
All right.
So here I've got my Cutie Pie board. This is the new SAM-D21 board we have, and it's wired up to our e-ink friend. And you see it's updating this e-paper display, but only the last digit is changing, and you don't get that like flashing effect that you normally do. So this is called like a fast, partial, or differential update. But if you do update, you see there's a little bit of a ghost image, like it's not perfect. Like, you know, if you can't just do partial updates because you get residual ink kind of like floating around. So you do have to do like a full update about every 10 updates. But that said, it's kind of neat. Like, you know, you basically can have like, you know, animations or like, you know, graphs that are like dynamically changing, or like in this case, obviously this could be a clock where it updates the seconds or minutes. And another thing that this display can do is Grayscale, which is pretty cool. If people want to see that, I could load up the Grayscale code now that I've tested this out. I don't know if people in the comments had any requests. And what I'm doing was I was actually getting this working because I wanted to create a feather wing for 2.9-inch e-ink displays. This is a 2.9-inch diagonal. So this is a feather wing, and this display would plug in onto the end here and wrap around. So it's like a nice, like, you know, display looks like that when it's assembled. And has a couple buttons on the top, and then your feather wing plugs, your feather plugs in. Get some SD storage for some files as well. All right, so that's basically what I worked on, and it's like that actually took a really long time.
Yeah, so
because the data sheet didn't have any information.
Couple things.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, the first time I've seen an e-ink display selectively updating just one location and uses a clock.
Yeah.
I've not really seen that before.
It's really hard to do, especially flipping between partial and full. It's like you basically have to load different lookup tables, initialization code, and you have to, your code has to be able to do it. So it's like not only was it really annoying to figure out like exactly what the chip wanted, but you also have to refactor your code to like deal with the fact that, you know, 1 out of 10 times you're going to do a full update, so you can't hard code the lookup table because you have to switch between them.
So you have to choose, like, you have to kind of know what you're going to do before you do it, and then you have to write the code to kind of cover every make and model of all the ThinkInks, and then you have to be able to drive it and make it easy. And
historically, we only had, you know, full updates. Like, I never did partial because it was such a pain. You know, again, it was like almost no documentation. Sorry, there's no documentation. And, you know, it seemed really annoying. So, but I was like, well, I really want it for a project I'm building. So, sat down and did that yesterday and today. Let me see, maybe I can open up the Grayscale demo, because that'd be cool. Another thing that this can do is Grayscale support.
So you just basically say, okay, now we're going to do Grayscale. And then,
but you can't do Grayscale and partial.
Yeah, you can't do do partial updates and Grayscale at the same time. So you have to say, okay, we're going to do...
Yeah, it's so confusing.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. I mean, these are like tiny
there's machines. Definitely like you know, when you're dealing with TFTs, right? Like we recently had to deal with like people asking about TFT glass and TFT chips. So TFTs are made with a glass that has like the RGB matrix, and it has a driver chip. And the driver chip is usually what you call the display. You call it like a ILI 9341, or you call it an ST7789. Hold on, let me just change the Cutie Pie pin out. And I'll load this. But with e-inks, it's different. So like in TFTs, the glass is pretty much always the same. Like maybe you have like the red and green swapped or something, but for the most part, you know, Pixel 1 is Pixel 1, the 16 or 18-bit color, it's 18-bit color. Like you're not going to get changes in that way. But for e-ink displays, you have the film and you have the driver. And the film is what dictates the lookup codes. And the driver is what dictates the way you communicate with the chip. So you actually need both. Like you can't just say like, oh, an ST7789 is an ST7789. You actually need to have, you have to combine both the film and the driver. So this is Grayscale. You can see actually from doing the partial updates that it has a little bit of residual. What you need to do is, and I haven't done it here, is you like do a full hard refresh to white and then full hard refresh to black.
In computer science, there's garbage collection. What are you going to call this?
I don't know. I mean, it's
screen cleaner.
It's screen cleaning basically, but it looks like if you do too many partial updates, you get a ghosting effect.
And this is physically inside of it moving a particle, a chunk of particles to a different position to have a point
to reflect or not reflect.
So it's a like electrostatic process. You probably know better. Like it's physically moving little balls. Is that the right way to?
Well, it's using like electric signals to move the ink balls up and down. But the ink balls get like ionized. Just like, you have a screwdriver and if you touch it to a magnet too much, eventually it gets magnetized.
So I'm wondering what the
so to demagnetize it.
I'm wondering it's like, what's the right term for like when you have to like shake those magnetic screens? The Etch-a-Sketches?
Yeah, it's like that. It's like that. The Etch-a-Sketch, you have to like clean it and you have to really, really shake it.
Yeah, maybe we'll look up what that is. Because like you draw the magnetic thing where you put the mustache on the guy and then you have to like shake it off and... So we'll look up what they call that. Yeah,
I think it's interesting. It's like you really do see... It's very faint, but you do see a little bit of an outline. It's interesting. So I don't know if it means I'd have to not use it for a while or what. I'm going to investigate more. Again, there's like no information.
Okay, is there much of a power saving on top of the speed improvements?
Well, because it's a little bit less power, but most importantly because it's faster, it's just on less. Like the longer it's on, the longer all the power takes. So one of the nice things about fast partial updates is that you don't have that long delay while you're waiting. Because this has an update rate of about 1 second. And when you're doing partial updates, I think it's half a second. It's like about twice as fast. There's also a thing where you can do partial updates, but it doesn't like overwrite the ink. Instead, you can have it like do the flashing, like how you see how it's like flashing the whole thing. It does like the invert. It does that, but only on a little square. So I think that might be a little bit more gentle on the display as well. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm using the Cutie Pie, and we put a couple hundred of these in the shop, and they sold out really fast. So
sign up, adafruit.com/cutie-pie. We're going to keep putting them in stock, and then we did a low price right now, and if we put them in, they're still going to be a lowish price. Eventually, we'll have to raise the price, but we want to get a bunch of these out. So sign up to be notified.
They're cute.
And we have a easily memorable URL, adafruit.com/QTI.
But if you did get one, you might notice on the back, there's this little spot. Now, we have to wrap up the guide, but there's a spot on the back for, it says SPI Flash, if you look very carefully.
Yeah.
And you might be wondering, like, hey, what's that for? Well, in CircuitPython, we use the internal flash memory of the chip for a disk drive, but, that means that we can't fit as much stuff into CircuitPython. Also means you can't fit as many files. So if you want to do, like, audio playback, or you want to have, like, fonts or whatever, bitmaps, you'll have to store that on the flash memory by soldering it in. And flash memory is something that, we put in a couple of these chips into the store in case people wanted them. But I wanted to show people, what if you want to add SPI Flash, and there's like multiple sizes available, not just physical, but actual memory sizes. How do you search on Digi-Key to find a flash you can solder onto the back, and that leads us into
that's right. Part of
the great search.
Every single disk of LADYADA, we have a great search by Digi-Key and LADYADA.
Where in the world is that part I need? The great search with Digi-Key.
All right, LADYADA, let's do this.
Okay, so this great search we're going to be looking for SPI flash memory so we can solder on the back of our Cutie Pie. So let's go to the computer. Okay, so yeah, on the back of the board, there's a little spot that says SPI flash. Now here's some good news. All SPI flash has the same pinout, which is like really, really handy. So you don't need to worry about like what if there's there's slightly different models, but the pinout's always the same, and that's why I don't have a particular number that I'm suggesting. Instead, you can find almost any SOIC SPI flash and solder it onto the back. So let's go to Digi-Key. So SPI flash, I actually just searched for SPI flash. Now there's other kinds of memories that you can get. There's SRAMs, which is what I use on the e-ink friend to help buffer the display. There's EEPROMs, but SPI flash is low cost and fairly large. Like the SPI flash that I tend to use is either 2 or 8 megabytes, and like that's pretty good. I mean, like it's not as overall as cheap as an SD card per megabyte, but if you don't need a gigabyte, you'll need a couple megabytes. It ends up being cheaper, even though because you're not paying for an SD card and SD card holder. So after you search for SPI flash, so you're going to get a bunch of things, especially microcontrollers, because microcontrollers also have SPI and they have flash memory. Remember, when you search, it's like all the words can appear in any order. So even though embedded microcontrollers has like 56,000 items, we want memory. As always, I'm going to pick active. And normally I pick tape and reel because I'm buying from manufacturing. But in this case, it's like, let's make it so people can order 1 or 2 pieces and update their SPI flash on the back of their Cutie Pie. So for that, I'm going to just ask for cut tape or tube. I mean, you can also get bulk, but Digi-Reel, tape and box, those are all going to be like, larger quantities. So let's just, we can get rid of like 3,000 results just by doing this. Okay, next up, what is the mounting type? So I'm going to go with surface mount, or instead of just picking surface mount, you can go down to the package and case and say like, well, what is my package? In this case, if you go down, you can see you can get flash memory in like, BGA format, like 16 pin. We just want the 8 SOIC version. And now there's 2 types, and you have to watch out because I've totally made this mistake. There's 2 sizes of SOIC SPI flash, what I call slim and chunky. And I'll show you on the overhead real fast if it's okay to flip back. So these are the same pinouts, but you'll see one is the chunky and one is slim. Once you get over like 4 megabytes, you usually have to get chunky size. Although I'm not convinced that the die itself takes that much space, but they seem to be only available in this package. I don't know exactly why. So watch out. Depending on your footprint, for our boards, we often have a footprint that supports both. On the Cutie Pie, it only supports the smaller one. So you can see here. However, I have, in times of desperation, soldered a larger one on by sort of like, putting it perfectly on and then like soldering the pins. If it's like perfectly centered, you can get away with it. Okay, so back to the computer. Okay, so now that we've decided we're going to go for the 3.9 millimeter with the smaller one, we have a bunch of options. Okay, so number 2 thing you got to watch out for. When you look for SPI flash, it's sold in megabits. but chances are you think of memory in megabytes because that's how humans tend to measure things. So you have to multiply it by 8. So if you want a 2 megabyte device, you're looking for a 16 megabit. If you're looking for a 16 megabyte, if you're looking for an, this is confusing because it's by 4. If you're looking for a 4 megabyte, you're looking for a 32 megabit. And if you're looking for an 8 megabyte, you're looking for a 64 megabit. But these are like a little confusing because sometimes it multiplies by 4 per memory section. In general, I'd say like just go with not the the page types, but just like the ones that are like plain 2 and 4 times 8 bits. So let's look at the biggest ones. Some of these can do quad I/O. In the QT situation, it actually only supports SPI. But if your device requires flash memory and it has QSPI mode, I strongly recommend it. QSPI mode can usually run like 80 to 100 megahertz, whereas SPI is usually limited to like 16. So not only is the clock speed much, much faster, but you get 4 bits of data bidirectional. So you get like, it's like at least 8 to 10 times faster. It's quite nice. Okay, so let's also look for what's in stock. Okay, and we have a lot of options. I mean, what's cool is you see there's a lot in stock. These are really popular. People who do FPGA work need them. People who have, advanced microcontrollers that use external flash need them. And there's a lot of different vendors. So one thing to watch for is voltage range. I've been bit by this too. You want to make sure that you're not getting the 1.8 volt range if you're not using 1.8 volts. In my case, I'm using 3.3. So I want to filter out all those other ones because it's one thing that is I've noticed is because the voltage is all the way to the right, I sometimes don't look at it. And so I forget to check like what's the voltage range. But now, basically we have all of these which would work just fine. They all are pretty much equivalent. As long as it's NOR flash, I've found that other than the identifier number, which is of course going to be unique, they're pretty much cross-compatible. There are some slight differences sometimes where page size or array size, or whether they have bulk array. There's like some companies have added, in addition to like the standard commands, like their own special commands. So watch out for that. The models that I really like are the WinBond and the Giga device, just because I've seen them a lot. They're really popular. But Adesta is also really good as well. But it's hard to beat the price for 50 cents. For one-off pieces, you get, in this case, 2 megabytes of memory. Runs up to 120 megahertz in QSPI. And you can just pick up as many as you want and just solder them onto the back of your QT or upgrade your CircuitPython board if you need to. So a very handy trick to know is how to find SPI flash memory. And now you do.
Okay. And with that is the great search from Digi-Key.
Yay!
Where in the world is that part I need? The great search with Digi-Key.
All right. Well, that's just LADYADA for this week.
Okay.
A couple of reminders. Go to adafruit.com. We are open. We're shipping. We're shipping really fast. So please place an order. We get it out almost instantly. We've been able to take care of all orders around the world, even with all the ups and downs that are happening in the world. Go to adafruit.com/vote so you can see some voting resources. You have plenty of time, sort of, to get your voting plan together for voting month. That's what we're going to call it. And
Indeed.
yeah, and we'll have shows on Tuesday,
Yep.
Wednesday,
Yep.
Thursday,
Yep.
and Friday. So full week of electronics.
You only
and
get
more.
Monday off.
Yeah, but we'll be posting some cool stuff all throughout the week. Check out all the places. We're usually Adafruit on all the social media networks, like even Instagram, instagram.com/Adafruit, twitter.com/Adafruit. And if you want to, like and subscribe, post a comment. Apparently it helps the algorithm, and you're supposed to say that now. That's what the YouTube channels say.
It's like we're feeding Malach the
Well,
The
whatever.
demon.
We've been doing this educational content for years. The folks out there help to support us, place your order, and we'll just keep doing it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, LadyAda. That is
Thank you, everybody.
Desk of LadyAda for this week.
Good night. Have a great week.